News International. Good evening, CJ.
Here are tonight's headlines.
Typhoon Julia has made another landfall in Dimasalang, Masbate, a weather forecaster said.
And an aid affected by Caldor fire in California.
Under the stricter Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine, or MECQ, until September.
And due to the ongoing COVID-19 surge during the Labor Day weekend in the U.S., emphasizes taking extra precautions so as not.
$1 million were put on small boats in international waters and smuggled into the Philippines, and had a buy-bust operation at a hotel in the 4 Chinese drug traffickers who engaged government operatives in a gun battle in a failed attempt to escape, according to the statement distributed in Luzon, the Philippines' main island. Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. This operation was a met approach in our campaign against art. In a statement, the operation more than 800 kilograms of methamphetamine.
Monday, it hit land again. Said it was last seen in the vicinity PAX maximum sustained winds of 120 kilometers and Pangasinan to Typhoon Julia. Now, in an interview, Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Center Manager Shalom Balolong said national line agencies such as the Philippine National the province. Meanwhile, we're Dimasalang Masbate and is now traversing over mainland Masbate as of press time. Predict, plan, prepare in the Red Cross. We predict and weather reports. We plan our volunteers and staff will have that instinct and will know. Richard Borden in a MERC is beefing up its.
Thousands of people were ordered to evacuate over a major U.S. tourist spot, filling the air with choking smoke. The flames have more than 270 square miles or 700 square kilometers, raising hundreds. MJ Racadio was at the scene. MJ.
Very devastating after in their homes here in South Lake Tahoe. Take a look. So what was your reaction like when you found out that you... All right, so now...
Feels good, but to be back.
FYM Foundation with basic necessities via a...
And... Yes, so now.
Oh, we're so happy because we still have a house to live.
All times, especially calamities such as fire. So to our fellow fellow brethren, members and non-members in Carson City.
And I heard about the Scan International. What is that about?
It's basically we also provide help and aid that needs help. So we are the first responder from the church.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I heard that you all, the residents over here in Lake Tahoe or in Carson City, giving out goodies.
With then immediately they're so very happy to have.
September the 6th, the Caldor fire has burned 358 acres. Racadio, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, MJ. Now back here in the Philippines, 38,960 vaccines have been administered nationwide as of September 5. That according to the National Task Force Against COVID-19, or NTF, in a report. A total of 15,033,354 have already completed 2 doses, while 20 initial dose, according to the NTF report today. The total vaccination program reached 2,739,572, while the average daily jab accomplishment in the last 191,300 is already at 52,130 doses to vaccinate 70,139,058 Filipinos out of the 198,650. The government is also looking at protection is achieved. Vaccine czar and NTF that the World Health Organization has not yet recommended.
The government has allowed those who have been fully inoculated against COVID-19, that according to Malacanang. Now, made by the Interagency
Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF-EID, in its meeting held this afternoon, decided to defer the pilot implementation of the General Community Quarantine, or GCQ, with alert level system in Metro Manila. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the quarantine classification in Metro Manila would only be downgraded to GCQ once the country's metropolis is ready for the pilot implementation of granular lockdowns. Metro Manila's current risk classification as modified enhanced community quarantine shall be maintained until September 15 or until the pilot GCQ with alert level system is implemented, whichever comes first, according to Roque, also acting as IATF EID spokesperson in a press statement. Metro Manila was supposed to be under regular GCQ from September 8 to 30th to pave the way for the implementation of localized or granular lockdowns in the country's metropolis. Following the deferment,
to wear a face covering when using public transit aged care facility. Many of those rules are well known to people. If you are inside any retail businesses, including supermarkets, which again people have been practicing recently, but also now that you're able to travel and visit them, malls, takeaway food stores or shops.
Inside Auckland will move to alert. It means stay-at-home orders are lifted, but the freedoms enjoyed before the Auckland cluster emerged when domestic life in New Zealand was near normal will not be fully restored. Indoor social gatherings will be restricted to 50 people with mandatory masks in many venues. A woman in her 90s on Saturday became the first person to die with COVID-19 in New Zealand since February, bringing
Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced a £1 rescue package for the National Health Service. Outbreak and staff shortages have led to experts warning services may need to be cut unless the NHS $10 billion of funding. Patricia Rodriguez has that report. Patricia.
The government on Monday announced funding for the state-funded health cases and clear a massive backlog in routine operations. Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Health Minister Sajid Javid added out over the next 6 months, saying it would help manage the service, or NHS has struggled to cope with their usual specializations to help treat COVID-19 patients. The largest part of the extra, such as enhanced infection controls, will help tackle the backlog in other treatment and operations. Johnson acknowledged that treating COVID patients has created huge backlogs and said the money would go straight to the front line to provide treatments that patients aren't getting quickly enough. Javid said that the waiting lists would get word for treatment following relaxed the waiting lists for routine operations such as hip replacements and cataract removal could soar to 13 million. The extra funding announced is only for next year. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Patricia Rodriguez. We live in...
Meanwhile, the current COVID-19 emergency in Tokyo and other areas could be extended by up to 1 month beyond its to allow the next prime minister to decide when the measures should be an extension of at least 2 weeks, having deemed the strain on business activity. But with Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga's impending resignation, the emergency declaration could be extended to the ruling Liberal Democratic Party to decide when to end that measure. Now, 21 prefectures are currently under the state of emergency, with alcohol sales and closed by 8 p.m. Only some of the prefectures are expected to see the measure lifted on September 12 as scheduled, and even then they will likely shift to a quasi-state of emergency versus Osaka Governor Hirofumi Yoshimura said, unavoidable. Tokyo, one of the hardest hit areas, confirmed marking the first time since July fallen below 1,000. Still, concerns have persisted over the rapid spread of the highly contagious Delta variant.
Staying there in Japan, where the country has doses of Novavax's coronavirus vaccine, with Japanese firm Takeda expecting to manufacture the formula. Now, the cost of the deal was not announced, and it is contingent on the vaccine being approved in Japan. Takeda will be in charge of carrying out local clinical as approved the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, and AstraZeneca jabs, though the latter is in fashion. Unlike the mRNA products from BioNTech, Pfizer, Moderna, and Cure vaccine relies on a more traditional technique using proteins to carry fractured harmless to produce an means it does not have to be stored in ultra low temperatures, potentially giving it a logistical edge. U.S. firm Novavax said its vaccine has 90% efficacy against COVID-19 based on a North American study. U.S. and EU regulators have mapped the jab's efficacy.
News here on Eagle News. CJ and I will be back right after this break.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Events happen around us all day, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know in these interesting times. We're in delivering news about fast, accurate, balanced, because we live in
Welcome back. The Taliban the air to disperse hundreds of people who had gathered at several rallies in Kabul, the latest signs of defiance by Afghans against the hardline Islamist movement, which swept to power just last month. Now, at least 3 rallies were held across Kabul in a show of resistance that would have been unthinkable during the Taliban's last stint in power, when people were publicly executed and thieves had their hands chopped off. Afghanistan's new rulers have yet to form a government, but many in the capital are fearful of a repeat of the Taliban's previous brutal and repressive reign between 1996 and 2001.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the Taliban had reiterated a pledge to allow Afghans to freely depart Afghanistan. Take a look.
We've also been engaging with the Taliban on this topic, including in recent hours. They've said that they will let people with travel documents freely depart. We will hold them.
Qatar said that Kabul airport, largely closed since the conclusion of Washington's chaotic withdrawal from the country at the end of August, would hopefully reopen soon, potentially opening an import corridor for Afghans seeking to leave. The United States on Monday facilitated the evacuation of 4 Americans from the same family by land out of Afghanistan, the first departures arranged by Washington since the military pullout. A State Department official said the Taliban were aware of the operation and did not interfere. But non-governmental organizations say that some 600 to 1,300 people, including girls and U.S. citizens, are stuck at the airport in the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif. Blinken said that the Taliban had not blocked people with valid travel documents, but that not all passengers on charter flights had papers, denying there was a hostage-like situation in Mazar-e-Sharif. He said there were inevitable obstacles to charter flights as the United States does not have personnel on the ground.
Meanwhile, South Korea has test-fired a homegrown submarine-launched ballistic missile, according to a report today, as it seeks to build up its forces to defend itself from the nuclear-armed North Korea. Now, South Korea's Agency for Defense Development last week carried out underwater ejection tests of the SLBM from a new locally developed 3,000-ton class submarine fitted with 6 vertical launching tubes, according to Yonhap, citing unnamed military sources. The SLBM is believed to be a variant of the country's Yunmu 2B ballistic missile with a range of around 800 or rather 500 kilometers or 310 miles and will be mass-produced for deployment after another round of tests, according it added. South Korea joins only a handful of countries to have successfully developed an SLBM. Pyongyang has long sought to develop submarine-launched ballistic missile technology and showed off 4 such devices at a military parade overseen by leader Kim Jong-un in January, with state media, KCNA, calling them the world's most powerful weapon. But while North Korea has released pictures of underwater launches, most recently in 2019, analysts believe that was from a fixed platform or submarine barge or submersible barge rather than a submarine.
Meanwhile, South Korea's military today said it was closely watching North Korea amid signs the country was preparing to hold a new military parade. According to KBS World, North Korea is expected to conduct a massive military parade in Pyongyang this week, marking the 73rd anniversary of the country's foundation. According to multiple military sources in South Korea, the parade will likely take place on Thursday, the day of the foundation of the Republic.
Meanwhile, Israel launched airstrikes against Gaza on Monday night, according to the army, retaliating after incendiary balloons launched from the blockaded Palestinian enclave had started fires. Take a look. Blaming Hamas for the balloons, the Israeli army said it had targeted locations belonging to the militant group that controls the Gaza Strip. Witnesses said that the army had also fired artillery at the north of Gaza. According to medical sources in the Palestinian enclave, no one was killed. Earlier in the day, Israeli firefighters had said that incendiary balloons had caused 3 bushfires at sites close to the Gaza Strip. Launching the makeshift devices is a common tactic of militants in Gaza, which Israel has blockaded for nearly 15 years. Israel frequently responds with airstrikes.
Eagle News will be back with more stories. Please don't go away.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, Secretary Ramon Lopez has urged Japanese firms to invest in the Philippines as opportunities for manufacturing, construction, and energy remain high despite the pandemic. In a virtual Philippine economic briefing for Japanese companies today, Lopez said Japanese investors may look into opportunities in the production of semiconductor and electronic goods, as well as manufacturing of medical devices. Lopez said as the government aims to build its healthcare facilities, demand for medical devices is expected to increase. The local medical device market is projected to have a compound annual growth rate of 8.8% and would rise to $884.3 million by the end of 2024, that according to the secretary. The DTI chief said Japanese firms likewise have a big market to tap in the domestic construction sector, driven by the government's Build infrastructure program, housing backlog, office space requirement, transport sector demand, supply chain industry, power demand, and demand for more healthcare facilities. Under the Build program, the government has a total of 119 infrastructure flagship projects.
Meanwhile, Hong Kong marked the completion of a third runway at its airport today at a time when the once thriving international travel hub remains cut off from most of the world. City leader Carrie Lam presided over a topping-off ceremony for the 3.9-kilometer runway, which took 5 years to construct on reclaimed land. Thanks to its location and comparatively relaxed entry requirements, Hong Kong has long hosted one of the world's busiest international airports. But it also faces increasing competition from regional rival Singapore, as well as rapidly expanding airports in mainland China. The city's reputation as a travel hub was also dented by months of political unrest in 2019, which at one point paralyzed the airport and China's subsequent crackdown on dissent. The business hub currently remains inaccessible to most people during the coronavirus pandemic because it maintains some of the world's strictest quarantine measures.
Meanwhile, some shopkeepers across London are struggling with a lack of sales and a shortage of stock as staff return to offices in the capital. Take a look.
Yeah, according to the chap at the cash and carry, they're getting deliveries, but a lot of items are just being cancelled off. So there's just certain products that just aren't getting to the cash and carry. Without products, there's no business because you need to have the products to sell. You know, if you have with empty shelves like this, no one's going to come into the shop anyway.
The Road Haulers Association estimates that up to 100,000 lorry drivers are needed in the UK to keep retail supplies moving as road haulage is seriously affected by a shortage of staff owing to the coronavirus outbreak and Brexit. Multiple lockdowns prompted also a fresh exodus of EU workers who filled many jobs in the logistics, construction, and hospitality sectors. The UK has faced major border delays after Britain's exit from the European Union on January 1st, while new immigration rules have disrupted recruitment.
And amid the pandemic, PAX West, the largest Northwest expo dedicated to gaming culture, has kicked off. Here's Michael Hudson for the report.
One of the first large-scale digital conventions opens its doors to this weekend in the Seattle area, PAX West. Many during the past year have been waiting to attend the event or any large-scale event in particular. PAX, or the Penny Arcade Expo, is one of the biggest video game conventions in the industry. During the 4-day event, people can play video games on console, PC, or mobile. If that's not your interest, areas are reserved for tabletop gaming as well. Vendors are here to showcase new and upcoming games from small startup companies as well as popular titles today. Walking around, you'll see plenty of people dressed in cosplay or costume play as their favorite characters from anime and gaming. Of course, in this COVID era, lots of planning and preparation go into making sure the area is safe for the attendees. One of them shares his experience before being allowed to enter the venue.
It's actually pretty safe, and the protocol that they've implemented is really good because they pre-screen you before you even come in. So before you even get into the vicinity, you have to have a badge or a wristband that they issue after they test you or you provide proof of vaccination.
The requirements for those allowed to enter must provide proof of vaccination, and those who are unvaccinated, a negative antigen COVID test result must be presented. Masks must also be worn except in some designated break areas reserved for food consumption. Many are hoping for more chances of large-scale events opening up if proper precautions are in place.
I mean, once everyone starts to take more safety precautions and some people choose to get vaccinated, I think more places, I'm looking forward to more places opening up and just have more safety measures in place too.
From Seattle, Washington, I'm Michael Hudson, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Michael. Now, El Salvador becomes the first country in the world to accept Bitcoin as legal tender, despite widespread domestic skepticism and international warnings of risks for consumers. President Nayib Bukele's government claims the move will give many Salvadorans access to bank services for the first time and save some $400 million in fees on remittances sent home from abroad every year. In June, El Salvador's parliament approved a law to allow the crypto money to be accepted as tender for all goods and services in the small Central American nation, along with the U.S. dollar. The bill, an initiative of Bukele, was approved within 24 hours of being presented to Congress, where the president's allies have held a majority since March. Experts and regulators have highlighted concerns about the cryptocurrency's notorious volatility and the lack of any protections for its users. Eagle News will be back. Don't go away.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Araw-arawin ng ngiti, araw-arawin ng saya. Happiness kada umaga.
Now, the World Rally Championship event in Japan was due to take place in mid-November, has been canceled because of continuing problems with the coronavirus pandemic, that according to organizers today. It is the second successive year that organizers have had to cancel the Rally Japan, which was due to appear last year for the first time since 2010. Rally Japan was inked in as the 12th and final event of the championship calendar, and the WRC said it would announce a replacement event shortly to conclude the season. After 8 rallies, Frenchman Sébastien Ogier of Toyota leads the drivers' standings 38 points ahead of his British teammate Elfyn Evans and Belgian Thierry Neuville of Hyundai.
Meanwhile, FIFA said Monday it regretted the chaotic scenes that preceded the suspension of the World Cup qualifier between Brazil and Argentina, and a decision on possible disciplinary action would be taken in due course. Take a look. The match at Sao Paulo's Neo Química Arena on Sunday was halted when Brazilian health officials ran into the pitch 7 minutes after kickoff, triggering a melee involving team officials and players from both sides. The officials intervened just hours after health authorities in Brazil said 4 England-based players and Argentina squad should be placed in immediate quarantine for breaching COVID-19 protocols. Brazil's National Health Surveillance Agency, or Anvisa, said the Argentinian Premier League players Giovanni Lo Celso and Christian Romero of Tottenham and Aston Villa's Emiliano Martinez and Emiliano Buendia had given false information when they entered Brazil. In scenes of confusion on the pitch, Argentina captain Lionel Messi and his teammates left the field while the Brazil squad began a practice game. Now, the Argentina team arrived back in Buenos Aires early on Monday.
Now, due to the ongoing COVID-19 surge during the Labor Day weekend in the U.S., Hawaii's governor emphasizes taking extra precautions so as not to overwhelm area hospitals, while Guam's lieutenant governor thanks healthcare workers and educators for their sacrifices. Alfred Acena is from our EBC Hawaii Pacific with more.
If this happens, healthcare leaders warn choices will have to be made. People will not receive the care they need, and some will die.
In preparation for this Labor Day weekend, state and territorial leaders in this part of the world take this opportunity to send some strong warnings as COVID-19 cases continue to surge.
As we approach the long Labor Day holiday weekend, please keep this in mind. The state of Hawaii is struggling with an unprecedented and disastrous surge in COVID-19 cases. Our hospital system is being pushed to the limit. As you well know, we need our hospitals to care for the sick and injured, whether it's COVID, cancer, heart attack, stroke, or trauma. Because of COVID, our hospital system across the state is in danger of moving toward a worst-case scenario, where there will not be sufficient health care for everyone who needs it, when they need it. Your choices can help our community prevent the worst-case scenario in our hospital system. Please act responsibly this holiday weekend and moving forward as we battle this highly transmissible and deadly virus.
Meanwhile, Guam's leadership has been acknowledging the recent sacrifices made by the healthcare workers and even the education community.
Over the past several days, we have seen large numbers of new cases. Our clinics are strained, our hospitals are at capacity, and our ICU beds are nearing capacity. You have heard our governor and our medical professionals say over and over again that our healthcare system is fragile and that we must do everything we can to protect it so that when our people get sick, they can be cared for. After just a few short weeks of being back to school, we had to make the hard choice to suspend face-to-face learning from our students. This was a decision that no one wanted, but it was necessary to keep our kids safe, especially those who cannot be vaccinated. It was clear that with the spread in the community moving at such a rapid pace, the spread in schools would likewise increase, and we needed to prevent that. Our children have been asked to endure so much over the last 18 months, and I'm asking all of you to help stop the spread of the virus in whatever you can so that they can go back to school as safely and as soon as possible.
Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Acenas, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
And a canvas by British artist Banksy, which was partially shredded moments after selling at auction in 2018, will go back under the hammer next month, according to Sotheby's. Now, the artwork, now called Love is in the Bin, will be offered for sale by the London Auction House on October 14, with an estimated selling price of £4 to £6 million or $6 to $8 million US. The painting, originally entitled Girl with the Balloon or Girl with Balloon, sold for nearly £1.1 million at the same location in October 2018 and is now being resold by the unnamed collector who purchased it. The canvas unexpectedly passed through a shredder hidden in the large Victorian-style frame moments after bidding ended, partially destroying it and stunning the art world. Now, the prank was orchestrated by the elusive and irreverent Banksy, whose identity is said to be known to only a handful of friends. The part-shredded canvas, which was exhibited for a month at a museum in Germany in 2019, depicts a small child reaching up toward a heart-shaped red balloon. Now, it was originally stenciled on a wall in East London and has been endlessly reproduced, becoming one of Banksy's best-known images. The painting will go on public display at Sotheby's in London for 2 days from Saturday before embarking on a global tour to Hong Kong, Taipei, and New York ahead of returning to the British capital.
I would buy that if I can afford it. We do love
me
Banksy
too.
here on the show. Oh, and speaking of love, a good friend of mine got engaged today. Congratulations, Michael Hilton. And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. The news continues tomorrow.
And I would also like to greet my good friend, Ara. Ara, congratulations to your wedding. She got married a few days ago. I wasn't able to greet her or go to the wedding because of the lockdown. But
Yes, Alma,
congratulations to you too. We love you. And as I always say, by the end of each day, there's so much more to be grateful for. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles, and
we live
in interesting times.